All right. Test. It is working actually. A little concerned, but anyway. Okay. Well, hi everyone. If there's any of you actually watching this video, this is supposed to be one of my video diary. In fact, it is meant to be a little bit more personal than actually for public. Because over this winter break, I just would like to kind of upgrade my current drawing skills and painting skills and do something even more awesome than my desktop. So, yeah, that is the basic purpose of this video, or for this series of videos, to actually record some of my studies of like anatomy, perspective, shading, all that kind of stuff. And is this recording? Yes, it is recorded. So if you guys any how like missed the video, you can always check it. Because I will later probably upload the recorded version to the YouTube channel as well. All right. So I guess we will start with a little self-introduction. My name is Yan Hong Lu, and I'm currently a Purdue graduate student, and I will graduate pretty soon. And I interested in drawings and paintings, especially anime style. I also have an interest in 3D modelings, texturings, and all those like 3D stuffs, because those are pretty cool as well. I think that is all you need to know about me. We can get started, I guess. Oh, well, I don't think we really need this one. This is actually one of settings, like character settings, that I'll be working on, but this is not very important. Let's create a new canvas. Let's do a horizontal one, just for practices. Alright, so as I mentioned in my Facebook page, is that I wrote yesterday, I guess. Yes, yesterday. That I probably going to start with like a practicing, like drawing some human figures, and also maybe something related to geometry perspective. Because this is the part I think that is the most critical, that you actually practice every day. To draw something, even maybe just one character poses is okay, because you just keep on, accumulate whatever you're doing. So, oh man, please bear with my poor English. I'm not a native English speaker, so it's kind of awkward. Okay. All right. Is there like any other problems that I have here? Default streaming key. It's actually my first time streaming online, so I have no freaking clue whatever I'm doing here. So probably this will be a recorded like a video after all. But this is the first day, so we'll see what will happen next. Alright, so I think we can go through some of the basic materials that we probably need for like drawings and paintings, especially for digital drawings and paintings. Well, I personally prefer to draw on a tablet. The tablet I'm using right now is Wacom. I believe it is Intuos 4. Yep. This is a really old tablet I'm using, but I think it's still working pretty good, so I won't probably change it over the course of this winter for sure. And if this is the first time using a tablet, or if you are going to use a tablet, is for some reason that you are just like now drawing on plain papers, then just be prepared that if you are drawing on tablet that doesn't have a digital screen attached to it, it could feel a little bit awkward at first. Because I mean, you are drawing on a tablet, but you are looking at your computer screen, so your hand-eye coordination is not very good for this reason. But once you get used to it, then everything will be fine. Okay. So I'm still a little bit concerned with this one end stream. I think it is now streaming. I think it's streaming. Yeah. Wow, you're okay. So it is actually working. Ooh. Okay. I'm just afraid that I might be screwing up something. So a good thing about tablet is that you can actually have pressures with the pen that you're using. So instead of just drawing boring, a line that is just like as thick as this, you can actually apply the pressures. So it's like has some like variations of the like the thickness of the line, also the transparency of the line. That is one thing good about tablet. But if you're drawing with the paper and pen, that's totally fine, I think, especially for practice. That is not like required that you have to use a computer or like any computer software or tablet to draw. That's definitely not a requirement. But this is just my personal preferences to use a tablet to draw, even like drawing out my sketch. All right. So the second thing I want to talk about the software that I'm using right now. It is Sai, the Paint Tool Sai. You can see on the top here is version 2. I find that drawing in software such as like Photoshop, which is like a pretty common practice for some of the artists, is kind of frustrating because there's just too many functions that don't really need in Photoshop. And it really is a software that is meant for editing, like photo editing, instead of like drawing. So I prefer to draw in some like properly designed software such as like Paint Tool Sai, or if you really want to go pro, then you'll probably go to Clip Studio. But I just like downloaded Clip Studio, and I just don't know if I want to use it yet. But we'll see. If it actually works better than Sai, then I'll probably switch to this. But I know that for practice purposes, Sai is like definitely good enough for everything that we have. Okay. So I think the next side topic will be to actually start finding the resources that you need online or like in whatever ways you want. Because I mean, practice, it sounds really simple and easy, like, wow, you just like grab a reference and draw, right? But sometimes I find that like it could be a little bit challenging to find a good reference. Let's see. Okay, live streaming this one. Yeah. I recently just like trying to find some more dynamic poses, especially dancing poses online. And after doing some Google search, and I find some interesting websites. For example, this one is called Wallpaper Flare, but the website doesn't really matter as long as you can find a good reference. So what does it mean by a good reference, right? Especially for practicing your like anatomies or perspectives, things like that. I would say that this kind of like pictures is a good reference, or like this one will be a good reference. And why is that? Because first of all, the shadings, the shadow and lightings are separated, the contrast is really well, and the human figures is well contoured. So you can basically see all the details that you need to actually have a good, decent amount of practice if you want to really dive into the practice. What is not a good reference picture? This is definitely not a good. This definitely not a good reference picture you want to go for, because you can just like barely see the face while everything's blurred. And also, I probably won't select something like this. This one could be a little bit too flat. There's not many contrasts as good as in this one. So in terms of practicing, good human anatomy like muscle structures and bones and facial expressions, this kind of picture, that low contrast pictures, is not too good. Okay, so this is like dumb basics about finding a good references. So you for just like a quick demo, for example, you just like want to find like a dancing person, right? Oh wow, dancing photography. Let's check photography, because photography is always good. Right. Now you get like a bunch of like photographies that related to dancing, and I personally like to use photography because it's usually professionally done, and it really shows some of the artistic instinct of the photographer, and that can be translated later into your own personal drawings and paintings, which I find to be very helpful. So dance photography, for example, like this one, I think is good. I probably will use this one like for a demo of the practice. Interesting. Okay. This is up to now the finding step about the practice that you're going to do, like finding pictures and finding good references, like searching online. The second step is like how to manage this like pictures while you're drawing and that kind of stuff. I'm using two screens. In fact, I'm using two computer screens. So if I'm streaming right now, I'm streaming on my main screen. So normally I will put the picture on the second screen that I'm having. But now, since we are just streaming on one screen, and probably if you are watching here, most of you have only one screen. For most of the like computer user, one screen is definitely good, more than enough. You don't really need two screens unless you're doing like graphic work, so like you are like a pro gamer or streamer, something like that. So for me, now I'm just going to assume that you all have like one screen. So and you all to manage this like kind of paintings, you can either put out this painting, put out this photography, and just like directly put into the canvas. Let's like a copy image. I think I just like paste. Yeah, you can like just like directly copy and paste it into the canvas they're having right now, and just leave it here. So you can just like when you like practice drawings, you can just go back and forth. Like because like if we want to like draw these figures, we can just leave the screen like this. So it is here, and then you just like draw on here, like whatever you want to do. Yeah, something like this. Or if you just like find it kind of frustrated to, once you get used to handling the tablet and handling the software, you probably want to move around a lot. Also, you want to like flip the canvas to check some of the drawings that you're doing. So at that time, you will find it could be annoying to have the photos or like pictures that are right on the canvas. So the thing that I'm using to solve this problem is to use some screenshot softwares. It's not actually software. It's like little plugins that is made for the Windows. I think it's a Snatch. Thing, snipping tool. I think it's the snipping tool. Is this one? Yeah, it's like just a Windows plugin. or like other plugins that you can find online will probably work as well. The shortcut for this plugin I'm using right now is just F1. So press with F1, I can just like grab this picture and then I can pin it to my computer screen. So now it is like a copy of it. I can scale it all, and I can put it right here. Let's delete this layer. So now when you are moving the canvas, this picture, the reference stay at the exact positions that you put it, and it won't interfere with the movement that you made on the canvas, which is good. I think it's better than just stick it directly on the canvas. That's just my personal preferences to do it if I have one screen. If you have two screens, of course, it will be best if you just like put this one on the other side of the screen. On the other screen. Yep. All right. Maybe you think like why I talk so much about like finding references and like introducing these softwares and all this like really basic stuff, because I mean sometimes it is easy to watch a video, but to learn something, I think the important thing is that you find how to learn it instead of just like learning it. So probably like I know like most of you guys are still in school, I guess. So you probably find it hard after you graduate from school that you have to learn so many things on yourself. And that is why I find it important to actually show you guys how to learn drawings or painting instead of like just teaching you guys how to draw or paint. That is also one thing that I keep to myself, I guess, to actually record the steps that I'm using to draw, to learn how to draw and paint. And it could be something good for my self-speculations later. All right. Now we have our reference pictures. If you are like not drawing on a tablet, you're drawing with hand, then you just like need to put the pictures on your cell phone. So like print it out and stick it to a wall and use that as a reference guide. Now we have the reference and we have a blank canvas. Now we can start like some practice, some decent sketch. Right. I probably use a pencil tool to sketch because the opacity of it is really low, so it is good for sketch work. And the key for sketching is the speed. Like for practice purposes, speed is everything that you actually need, because you want to practice not like how many details you want to put into the figures that you're drawing, but rather you want to grasp the basic of the dynamics of the human body. Like for example, I can see like several curves that indicates this moment, this motion. So that is what I want to capture. I don't want to like, for example, dwell too much on the muscle structures here. But if I want to dwell into the muscle structures later, I can still use this image. That is why a good reference is always good. Okay. So let me show you guys how to do this. Okay, so observe the curve. Also, of course, one thing good about digital painting or drawing is that you can always make free transformations. So if something that doesn't feel that is good enough, you can always scale it or like do the transformation in whatever way you want. All right, we are almost done with the sketches. I'll probably push this upward a little bit. Or maybe drag this downward effect. This is the hair. All right, so this is basically how I do a quick sketch. As you can see that I'm not really using many like defining outlines or contours, and my lines are pretty messy. But I think it's fine. It's really fine for like practicing. You know, you don't really need to draw some really refined things. My sketches are like this. Like it's super messy and it doesn't really make sense probably for like some of the people's at all. But it is good for practice purposes because I mean in less than probably 5 minutes we can actually quickly sketch out the body dynamics of like a character, and we want to just like keep like doing this like in a really like speedy way and quick way, so we can once we start drawing our own, creating our own characters and poses, or using like references online later, we can easily like put out the information for our brains like directly onto the canvas instead of like doing like anything without any idea about like what we are actually doing. So this is just to get ourselves accustomed to the feeling of like drawing body figures. All right, let's do the other one as well, like this one. Okay, so again observe the curves, like especially the curve that formed here and here, and also this one. Just using some like basic dynamic lines to represent this like curves. And also if you don't think that, oh shit. Also, it is also sometimes better to sketch in a really sketches small. Because one thing good about digital paintings again is that you can always like zoom in or zoom out the canvas. So on a piece of papers, you probably will have to think about the resolutions, like the size of the canvas that you want to use, to decide like how big the figures you want to put onto the canvas. So for example, if I have a canvas that is like super big, and I want to just draw one single human figure on that super big canvas, then it is kind of hard because you have to draw on the canvas like with a distance about like at most maybe a meter away, but what you are drawing is actually really huge, so you're just losing track of what you are actually drawing because you are so dwelled on details instead of observing the whole picture. But if in a digital painting, if we are doing a digital painting, we always like zoom out, like for example like this at this level of like a magnification, right? Oh, and we can like start like drawing our dynamics like this. Probably it's not that tilted. Yeah. And if we want to, for example, delve on details later, we can always like zoom in to whatever level of details we want. Like we can zoom in this big, right? If we just want to focus on the face, we can always like just like draw a face in this like level at this level of magnification. Okay, so things to keep in mind. To keep your distances from the canvas. Yeah, you don't want to zoom in too much. Don't want to like dive into details right after you start painting. That is definitely not the way that you want to do it. Okay, you can already see that. This is a little bit too long, I guess. That's fine. And you can always zoom out to check if you are satisfied with the sketch. it's a little bit too long as well. Alright, so this is the second sketch that we have done. Okay. And I don't know how long that take, but about like 5 minutes or so, I guess. So this is how you actually start practicing. It is not that hard. It's just like using like scribble lines if you want to like actually do the practicing. Or if I know like some other people use different techniques for like their like practices. So for example, let me grab another set of pictures and we start another example. Which one is good? Yeah, let's just use this other one. Let's use it on the desktop. Okay. Okay. And desktop. Okay, so you want to use this picture, right? To illustrate some of the other like practicing techniques that you can use. Again, I guess I would just do a screenshot of it. Okay, this one is like this one. Let's pin this one here. Okay, and this is gonna be closed, and we can close this one, and put this like new one on here. This one. All right. The other techniques, well, to be honest, I'm not too familiar with it, because you can actually practice using like color blocks instead of like scribble lines or actually outlines. For color block, I think it is even easier for some people, but for me, it's a little bit hard. But anyway, the basics is still the same. You want to find the curve to define the shape, and just like pay attention to the proportions of the bodies. Okay, so let's like try to define these curves. As you can see, this curve is definitely significant. Also, this curve, and this is like a straight line to form a contrast with the curve. Okay. And also, if you're actually doing the anatomy sketches, it's also helpful if you are finding anatomy points. That means the shoulder, usually the two shoulders, the I don't know how to call this part, but this like one protruding part of the pelvis bone. This is also significant. Also, there's like 2 points here. Shoulder has 2 points, and then also the knees, the elbow, and also the eye socket. Those are the critical points of the anatomy line. Critical anatomy points. Yeah, and also you can like find even more points if you pay attention. For example, the bottom of the chest, the chest cage, the rib cage. Forgive me, rib cage. Yeah, the bottom of the rib cage. You can also find that. Also, the outside or the top part of your leg bones is probably over here. That is also one critical anatomy point. And also the protruding part of the pelvis bone at the back, but not at the front. Those two are also critical. Also, you can define the anatomy point of shoulder blade if you want. But those are kind of like things that we can talk about later. Probably talked about those later. Once we actually delve into anatomy. For this point, we just need to pay attention to the body curves, and that's all we need. Yep, find this one. Okay. Is this the opacity I want to use. Yeah, it's fine. Oh, this is too big. I don't want this big. Yeah. This top part is a little bit too big. Shrink it. Give it a little bit more volume of the belly. Yeah, this is the way we want to do it. This one is too long. Yep. And after this, you can even use like white color to like create some of the highlight even. I'll probably use that's fine. Like define more of the structures here if you want. Again, just for practice purposes, nothing super serious. But if you want to like actually draw in some of the detail, you can do it. Definitely can. Now this is another way that I actually practice with. I'm not super familiar with this way of painting or drawing, but if you want, you can. It's all up to you. You definitely need to find the way that suits you the best. Not me telling you what is the best, because everyone has his own or her own like, way of drawings. Okay, so this is the second way. The third way is of course the normal like outline drawing, like direct outline drawing, which could take a little bit longer than the previous two, because now you have to like find some good decent outlines after all, and we're using these figures for this practice. Okay, again finding the curve first. Observe this S curve here, and all this C curve, or like a Simon S curve here. The arms are again forming a contrast, is a straight line. So we want to start here. Some people won't usually start with like drawing the head. I prefer not. I usually start with like drawing the chest. I think the chest and also the torso is the where all the like the dynamics are defined. So if you can actually draw a good like torso to start with, can start with a good torso, you can easily fit in the head later. No, the arm is, and the leg is like here. Leg. Okay. This is cool. Again, this one you need to pay a little bit closer attention to the contours that you're creating. But again, this is definitely not something finished. It is still a sketch. So you don't need to like be concerned with like so many details. You just need to grasp like, well, this is a good representation of the body, like a structure of the body, of the poses. Then it's good. Okay. Push this a little bit backward. We have to do that. Yep. Push it backward like this. Like this. Okay. There it is, like Asker. If it's too big, you can always shrink it. No big deal. This one is too long. Now the hand is in here. Yeah, if you want to draw the fingers, you can. But for my purpose, I'm not going to just like draw every single fingers. That's a waste of time. Okay. And the neck and the head are the last part I want to do. Like this. Yeah. This is the other arm and hand. Okay. Probably a little bit too short, I would say, so to make it longer. guys. Alright, so this is the third way of practicing. So far we have introduced like 3 way of practicing. Just like you should use like one way that you want. The first way is the scribbling, free scribble. The second is the I would call it like the silhouette or the like a contour, like drawing. And the third one is the like outline drawings. Personally, I think in terms of time it takes, the contour one takes the longest time, and also it requires like more detailed understanding of the human anatomies to draw it like in a quicker way. The second method, no, yeah, so for the other two, I think the scribble one probably takes a decent amount of time, but still it has some emphasis on the anatomical structures, but not as much as like this outline ones does. And it has more information than the thread one, or the like this silhouette one. We'll just call it the silhouette. Yeah. I have a silhouette one. I know like some artists just love to do this stuff because it is quick. It is like super quick and like quick and dirty. I would say it's quick and dirty, but I personally like to do the middle one. I kind of like doing this one as well, but this one, the problem is that sometimes you just get super obsessed with some of the details when you get it right, and then you lose track of time, and then you realize that wow, I've been like drawing this for like 20 minutes, but I just have just one of this done, which is not good for practicing purposes, because in terms of practice, I want to have as much picture done as possible. So I probably will use this one. And once I have more, like I have a better understanding of human anatomy, I will move on to this one. And for this one, I don't know if you guys want to use it, fine. I mean, some great artists actually use this. I just personally don't like using it. Maybe I'm wrong. In some case, maybe I'm wrong, but well, that's all up to you guys. All right. This is like some of the basic I want to talk about practicing. Again, be assured that the video will be recorded and uploaded later. So if you miss some of the previous content, you can always find it. And all right, let's now move on to something more about the basics about human anatomy. Because if you don't really have the basic of human anatomy, you probably won't be able to do good quality of practicing as well. And in order to do that, we need to search online. Yep. I did not really prepare any of the materials for this video, because I mean, if I prepared everything, you would just like use what I have prepared, right? What if, for example, I'm not really telling you guys what to do some of the stuff, and you want to start like doing some of the stuff yourself? Then what are you going to do, right? Searching online? Probably, but like how and what to search and what is the process? I think that is like one thing important for everyone, is to know how to learn instead of just learn. Yeah. All right. Now anatomy. Okay. Human anatomy diagram. Images. second. Let me drawings reference. And you can already find that there's tons of references. And of course, we want references of a realistic people. We don't want to start with references that is cartoony already, like this one. Definitely not doing this. We want some reference. This one's okay, I guess. Not too cartoony. This one is probably one of the most commonly used that you can find in many of the textbooks. Yeah, realistic proportions. This is one really classic image in a textbook. And we want to go the classic way. Or I want to go the classic way. Sorry, it's me. I want to go the classic way. This is also usually used in textbook. This one is also usually used in textbook. Yeah. So if you like searching online for like references, don't use references like this. Please don't use references like this or like this. It doesn't really help. This one doesn't really help. I mean, it's like what? This one is okay. I would say it's okay. A decent reference, but still a little bit cartoony to me. So if I want to use, I probably will use like references like this kind that is like used in the real textbook. Instead of like just finding some, cartoony images that is randomly done by random people. Well, after all, you're also watching this random video that made by me, so I guess that is the irony. All right, enough talking. Let's actually dive into it. So, human references. Okay, as you can see, we usually use head. Probably most of you already know this. Like we use head as a reference line for the body proportions. So, for example, let's call it like the unit of head is one head is the unit that we're going to use. So from the chin to the top of the head, of course, the length is one head, and from the chin to where probably the nipple is, another head on realistic figure. And from this nipple to the belly here, a little bit downward to the belly here, is another head. This is the third head that we have. And the fourth head is like down here, like about the anchor of the buttock, or like the end of the pelvis. Forehead is here. And the fifth head is at here, at the knee. Sixth head is at the ankle, a little bit above the ankle. And below is the feet. This is the normal human anatomy, for a normal person. This is how they look. And of course, in anime or in manga or in any other sort of cartoony drawings, these proportions are made to exaggerate some of the body parts. So, for example, if you raise the hip line here, and you can create a longer legs. Longer legs usually has a better looking proportional wise. So that is usually what people do. All right, back to the unit. Yeah, the head. The shoulder to the elbow is one head. The elbow to the wrist is another head. Usually your hand is from the chin to your forehead. That is the size of your hand usually. And the width of your shoulder is 1.5 head usually. And also the hip, the width of the hip is like usually like 1 to 1.2 head. That is the unit that we use to define the anatomy structures for most of the part. That is like especially for female figure here. For male figure is similar. It doesn't really differ much from female figure. Yeah. Except that the shoulder is a bit wider. So if you think about some like male character that is super buff, they can have a shoulder length of 2 head or even more. I mean, that depends on like the style they're going to draw with. For example, if you are in the Western style, like the Superman, Batman, that kind of character, the width of the shoulder can be up to like 3 head or maybe even 4 head. I don't know if like a crazy character like a Hawk, it's like a 4 head. That's crazy. It's crazily thick. And the hip, of course, for a male character, the hip is a bit narrower. It will be like approximately just 1 head. So it creates this like V shape of a male figure, like a V shape as a typical male figure look. And the vase shape or just like S shape is like for a female figure because the female hip is usually wider. It's 1 to 1.2 head. And the shoulder is narrow for female. It's like 1.5 head. So this is some of the basic things. And if you put that into the practice, you can actually define, for example, this is if you say this is a head, right? This is a head. This is a head. Yes, this is a head. Okay. This is a head, right? This is the head. And here is probably where the middle is the neck. And for realistic figures, of course, you want 1.5 head. That is female characters. I will just start with female characters. And this is where the nipple is. Let's use this one to represent it. And remember, this third head is here. Your belly, a little like a navel is probably around here. And the hip is here. Oh, this needs to be longer. And for the hip line, this 1.2 head about here. Another head here. This is where your knees is for like just a little bit above. Yeah, this far. This one. And another head. And the feet. This is one head. another head, and your hand. One head, another head, and your hand. Putting the neck, hands on shoulder. A little bit too small here. Yep. This is where nipple is, then the breast is probably should be something like this. Around here, yep. So this is what can be observed from a realistic person, like this one. Probably mine is not realistic enough because I have not been doing many realistic drawing for a long time. And we can create a little, yeah, like this. Yeah. Well, of course, we are drawing stylized figures. So we don't want anything that is too realistic. Otherwise, we'll just do, classic drawings or paintings, right? So for stylized figures, what we are going to adjust, first of all, this line, we need to move it upward. For shoulders, we need to shrink it. And for hip, we need to widen it a little bit. And of course, as a result, the length of the leg will be in length. Will be lengthened. Sorry, English is bad. And we bump up the chest line as well. Bump this up. And of course, as a result, the line moves upward as well. And move the neck inward. So we'll translate into we still use the head that we have here. Narrow neck, right? Shoulder is narrow here. About one head shoulder instead of 1.5 head, 1 to 1.2 head of shoulder length. And we have a relatively small chest cage. So basically, we, instead of having this as the nipple line, we define that as where the bottom of your breast is. Yeah. And just going downward a little bit. And we move up the hip line. So up here, probably here. So instead of having like one head, two head, three head, four head, where this is, where the end of the pelvis is, we upward to here, like here. As a result, the body shape becomes something like this. So this is like one head, two head, three head, and now here. And widen the hip. Widen the hip. Yep. And the longer legs. Come on, stop. Okay. Yep, that is how to transfer from a realistic figure to an anime character. Raise hip line, the hip line is raised, the leg bones are in length, like lengthened. You make the shoulder narrower, neck narrower, and raise also the chest, the chest line. Yep, that's how you make an anime character in this case. And why we are talking about it? Because although this part are in length, it doesn't mean that they are like doesn't follow any of the like the rules and restrictions of anatomy. That is definitely not true. For example, if you think about the length of your body and the length of the leg, you can see that it's like usually it could be one. I like to draw it like approximately 1 to 1 like this. But in some stylized paintings, it could be like 1.8 or like 0.8 or like 0.9 or 0.9 or like 0.7. That really depends on the way that you draw. Yeah. But it's definitely not going to be some character like this. It's not going to be some character like this. It's like this. It's like this is like a little bit too long. If you have like a hip right here, and your leg is like, for whatever reason, it becomes something like this. It's like having some character that is like unnatural legs, right? That's definitely not good. And it can be too short as well. If you think about like some of the chibi characters, that is fine. I mean, that is very, very stylized, but those are chibi characters. But if you have like left, for example, shorter than this one, let's say like maybe like oh shit, this is on this one, right? I like this short. Then it's like abnormal as well, so you cannot really make like really big changes. So a good way to keep in mind is like the way that I do it is to keep the length of the body, like the torso, as like one unit. So this part, usually the leg bone, the big leg bone, will be 1 unit, and from the knee to the ankle will be another unit. And that is the way that keep things nice and simple. That is the way that I do it. So you can find your own way, your own style. That's all up to you. I know some like artists really like to exaggerate some part, make the, like for example, the calf really long. Well, you can do that. Some of the art does really looks really good and awesome and cool, but just pay attention that exaggeration is still exaggeration. It is based on realistic like figures, so it's definitely nothing. It's definitely not going to be surreal. Uh, that is like one thing I want to really emphasize on, because like especially for beginners, the poor proportions for the like the body and the length of the leg is always a problem. It is easy to like keep in mind that wow, this is like the arm is one head, and then but like what is the length of the leg, right? It is hard to keep that straight. So just use your torso as a reference for your leg. I think that is the easiest way to do it. All right. I don't really talk too much about anatomy. If probably a little bit more. I think we need to talk a little bit more anatomy. The side wheel, yeah, the side wheel. We have to do the side wheel. Let's start with a real person. Yep. Female. Yeah. So the side wheels is kind of like tricky, because I mean, for a normal human character, the side wheel is definitely not like a lot of you might imagine to be like a standing straight, a really stiff position. That is definitely not right. The curve of your spine is the most significant in a side wheel. So you always see this S curves of your spine in your side wheel, and that connects to your neck. So if your neck is standing super straight on the side wheel, it will also look kind of awkward, because there's also a connection curve like here. It's like slightly slanted. It's not standing straight. That is like one part that a lot of like beginners missed. Like, oh, the neck is straight. No, this neck is not straight. It's a curve. There's a curve here. It curves down. Continue the curve to be this S curve of the spine, and then move on to the hip. And also observe the position of the leg. The position of the leg is not super straight as well. I think the male character here is the better demonstration of the female, because the female character here is wearing a high heel. I don't know why this reference image is like making the female character wearing a high heel, but that's kind of not what I want in this case. So maybe male character maybe could be a little bit better to indicate this matter. So on the side wheel, see the curve of the leg. Like imagine the leg bone is starting from here to here, and the calf bone is from here to here. It's like S curve of its own. It's also S curve. It's not straight. The S curve as of its own. So the center of your body weight lies in the middle of your feet. It doesn't lie on the heel, It doesn't lies on your toes, so it lies on in the middle of your hip, of your feet. That is where your like the center weight lies on, and that translate if that translate into a painting. So, can we? Yeah, this one. Let's keep using this head. Not a bad head. Okay, now the side wheel. First, we can define the spine, right? Remember the neck doesn't like sit here like this, like it's not a straight line. The neck is curved like this, and then goes down with the chest, and usually for like anime character, the S curve even more pronounced than like realistic painting. So this S curve is like pronounced like this. Okay, and the neck and the S continues. This is where your belly curve is. This is the belly and the hip. Yeah. And if you notice the rib cage, because our spine here is like S curve, so the rib cage, if you imagine that is attached to the spine, it should be like tilted like this as well. This is how the rib cage should be positioned. So the rib cage does not sit like this. This is not how your rib cage sit. This is not how you sit your rib cage when you are like standing straight. Rib cage is sit like this. In fact. Yep. This is a belly. If it's a really slim character, then it doesn't have a small belly. Your breast is here. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Notice where the hip should be. This is where the end of your pelvis, so your hip should be like here. And this is your pelvis bone. You remember the S curve of the leg. If you have a bone like this, it should be something like this. This is where the knee is. Knee is here. If the knee is here, size curve should be moved a little bit forward. Yep. This is where the ankle is, and your feet. And then we can add in the arms. Usually is like this. Yeah. Probably this is a little bit too push a little bit backward. Yep. Yep. And you can see that now the center line is here, right? It's like here. Yep. This is how the character normally stand. The pose of a character that stands still. This is how it actually looks. It definitely doesn't look something like this. If you're, oh shit, yeah. How it's going to look. Your character looks something like this. If you ever find your character standing in a pose something like this, then it's definitely not wrong. It's definitely not right. Yep, this is definitely not right. This is not the right pose. Yep. Okay. Oh my god. There's too many anatomies that we can actually talk about. But for the time being, I think this is good enough to start your practices. Because we already know some of the basic, like the defining length of the character. So like using like this guidelines to help you actually understand like how human body normally the proportion of how the normal proportion of a human body looks like. Yep. And that's about anatomy part, I guess. Because now once we understand of like some of the basic structure of anatomy, then we shall probably move on to stop texting me. Move on to perspectives, I guess. That is the thing that you have to learn. As an artist, you just have to learn perspectives. This is not possible for you to not learning perspective and draw good art. That is just not possible. So, oh my god. Okay, I understand. All right. So on that perspective. No, anatomy. Sorry. Okay, perspective. The thing about perspective is that first of all, we are as humans, our visual systems works as that the thing that's close to us is bigger than the thing that is further away from us. So eventually, if we imagine the thing that is like at an infinite distance from us, then it will vanish to a point. And that vanished point, if you imagine that being like infinite amount of objects, that means that vanishing point will form a line. That is the vanishing line that we have, or what we call the horizon line, the horizon. Yeah. So perspective, first of all, we need to define our horizon. Like this is like where all the thing that will vanish eventually, if they are at the infinite distance from us. After defining this line, we can start like, for example, let's just like draw a square, right? Let's draw. I don't want to use the ruler key. Draw a square here, right? That's our nice little square. It's now perfect. I like it. And how that square, like how further away, and how that square actually, if that represent not the square but the cube, then how that cube in space represent itself. We have to imagine a way that how this actually manifests in this like space, right? It doesn't, because unless it's like we are facing it like at front, then probably what we will see is not just like a plain square. So then we define, for example, let's imagine that square just like a shrinking away, moving away from us, further, and then it vanished. Then where will be vanished into? Well, there could be several ways that it could, like infinite amount of ways that it can vanish into, right? So because we have a vanishing line, there's like a infinite amount of dots on this line. So for example, if we just pick this dot, like imagine that this square just, if it gets further away from us, it will eventually vanish here. It's good. It could happen. Yeah, it could happen. But I mean, we can also find a point here and imagine this square just like moving further away from us and eventually vanish like to here. And that could happen as well. So you can really define this like kind of like a square in the infinite amount of ways. So for example, if we connect like this two, like imagine that this actually vanishes from this to this point, then let's just like connect all the vertices. No, I don't want to use the ruler key. That's cheating. Connecting these dots. This is like we basically have the trajectory of the point that defining the square that will eventually merge into the vanishing point here. So if we imagine that at a certain distance here, the square actually like vanished, not to the vanishing point, but it moving just to here. Like this is where the new square is. In terms of geometry, your vertices defines the shape in space. So the vertices that we know that if we going to eventually vanish, then it has to follow this trajectory. It has to follow this path. So if we imagine that the square is moving further away from us, it has to move on this path as well. So we will see that, well, this is where the square moves next. And because we have a distance here, the square now is no longer a 2D object that can no longer does no longer represent a 2D object here. It actually can form a 3D cube or 3D cube, because we have it move like this much of the distance. And if we get rid of these lines, then we can have our 3D object in space, like in regard of this like vanishing lines. What is good about this? So if we have like another cube, another square, you're going to make this square a cube again. You need to again like pick a vanishing line, a vanishing point. For example, here is okay. And then connect all the vertices. And then move a space to here, make it here. Now we have another cube. And what is important is that since these two cube, this cube 1 and cube 2, they share the same horizontal, like horizon, share the same horizon. They stay in the same space. Like they appear to be in the same space. So it doesn't make it doesn't like stand out to you. Well, there's like two like square just does not belong to the same space. So for example, if I create a circle, do it here. Let's say we have a vanishing line or the horizon like this, right? I'll pick a point here. You'll find that the third cube is kind of awkward. It's like they are maybe in the same space, but this one is definitely slanted, or like this doesn't really sit on the same surface as these two. If you guys can't really understand what I mean, this can be a little bit conceptual, but just imagine that we have like a bunch of squares sitting here, and then eventually they need to be on a certain plane. So that plane is like slanted. That plane is slanted somehow. Yeah. And of course, we have just dealt with like one vanishing point, right? Because we are just thinking this is a square. But in reality, what if, for example, we define two surfaces to be our like the planar shape. So one is this front surface, and we also have a side surface. So now we are imagining something that is not 2D anymore. We are imagining something really in 3Ds, and that is like we cannot no longer be satisfied with one vanishing point. So for example, right here, I've just dealt with all the squares, right? But imagine that the square, like here, has turned, right? It turned to an angle, maybe like 30-degree, let's say, right? Now the square, if you imagine like this being the top view of the square, now it turned 30-degree inward. It would be something like this in space. So we have to imagine like how that works, right? You have this square in space and the 30-degree turn. So just think that it turns in regard of the center line, right? So the side that turns away from us becomes further away from us, and the side that turns towards us becomes like closer to us. So this side will become shorter, and this side will become longer. And what is the rule? Like what is like relationship between this like two sides? Like how long did actually turn into? And that is where the vanishing point, vanishing line, or the horizon becomes important. Because eventually you will find that these two 30 degrees is not that great actually. Yeah. It has to follow like some rule here. Degree, yeah. It has to like the point has to be on the vanishing point. Yep. Because this side becomes shorter and this side becomes longer in terms of the middle line. Where the middle line is right now, well, if you have studied the geometry, you probably know that if you connect the vertex like this way, the middle line actually lies across the intersection. This is where the middle line is now. And if you ask the exact proportion of these two in regard of like this one, that is also a geometry question. So if we have something like this in the first place, the scenario 1, and then make it turn the 30 degree, to this. And our eyes are here. Seeing this. Then what we are looking now is the projection. Let's say that this lens is 1. And now this lens is 1. And there's a projection on this plane, or our like a wheel plane. This one is 1. This is 30 degree. Of course, this is 1/2. And then this is, I believe, this one, which is yeah, I don't know. Well, I forgot all the math about behind it, but it's about like 0.6 or something, I believe. Yeah, you can calculate this. Yeah, you know the geometry. You guys are better than I am. So yeah. So everything basically can be solved like in terms of this geometry like tricks that we are doing right now. So we can now see that this point, if we say that this is 0.6, right? This is 1, this is 1/2, and this is 1, then the length of this will be 0.6. Yeah. That is how you actually calculate this. Yep. And that is just a square. I mean, what about the cube, right? We know this is like just one side of the picture. What about the other side of the picture? So now what we are turning here is no longer a line. We just turned like a line of like a length of 1. Now we are like actually rotating a square in space. If we are imagine that we have a cube, right? And then we need to rotate this one like 30 degrees. So it becomes something like this. I'll just copy and paste. Something like this. So this one and this one, this side here and this side here, are the side we actually can see in the 3D view. And this is 30 degree. So now this is 30 degree. And if you imagine the length of this is 1, so this is 1, this is 1, and this becomes 1/2, and this becomes like 0.6 or 0.7 or 0.65. 0.65. I don't remember the exact value. Sorry. Actually majored in chemistry, but my math is like not that great, I guess. Okay, so now we have like turned this like a square in a space like this, and imagine this side represent a square, this side represent a square, so it is actually a cube. Then in 3D view, this is the front view. Now I have turned like 30 degree that way. This one is on the other side, on the other way. So now we have to imagine that this is like 1/2. If I something like this. And again, if we already find this part, defining a vanishing point for this side, just defining it to be here. I'll just picking it here. And for this side, we find another vanishing point, maybe here. Well, this doesn't. Well, there's certain ways to define the exact vanishing point, but we can do loose here. It's fine. And this is how what it now becomes, the geometry. This is our new cube. Yep. Well, I know sometimes it is hard to really define the exact vanishing point. I know it's not as simple. But there's certain rules that you can actually follow. So for example, if you imagine this angle here and this angle here, there's two angles. It's never going to be smaller than 90 degrees. These two angles is always greater than 90 degrees. This angle is going to be greater than 90 degrees. That is one defining actor here. As if this angle is greater than 90 degrees, then probably know that something's wrong with the geometry. Because I mean, if we are at the top wheel, the angle is 90 degrees. So if it is smaller than 90 degrees, then that means that probably means that you are having a geometry something like this. This is less than 90 degrees, and it is definitely not a cube. There is some weird shape right now. So these two angles, you can check this angle to see that if this is wrong. And also remember that since we just mentioned that we turn 30 degrees here, and so this, if we define this is the middle line, and this distance should also follow the ratio from here to here, like this 1/2 to 0.65. So this should be 1/2, and this should be like a 0.065. If it's mathematically defined, it should be something like this. Oh my god, this is the math lessons, guys. This is the math. It's all about math. But this is how you actually learn geometry and how you really learn the perspective. There's a lot of math involved, believe me. So it's not like saying that you cannot be a great artist if you don't know math, but it definitely helps if you can actually see that how math actually plays a role here. I think it's important to understand that math could be used this way. And how that actually applied to the topics that we are going to learn throughout this winter. Probably most about anatomy and sometimes I won't say a lot about shadings and the coloring, but I will definitely talk about a little bit of that. We'll learn together some shading and coloring as well. But for now, the geometry that we just learned, if we imagine that, for example, like a character, right? Instead of having the character standing directly facing us like this, right? There's a front wheel, Let's imagine this character in the front wheel, right? It's a simple character. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you imagine this is the front wheel, then what if the character is at a different angle? So for example, let's say this is the horizontal line that we have, right? Now the character turned 30 degrees away from us. And what will that happen, right? So the head is like a sphere. We don't just like make it a sphere. And if you imagine these are boxes, right? These shapes are actually boxes that will be represented by boxes. Then we will have to see that these boxes are actually having a space in taking up space in this, right? Their geometries, they are like cubes, and they have volume, so they cannot just float in the air. So this like has to be defined, like for example like this, right? This has to vanish accordingly, just as according to the rule that we just established. Right. If it's all cubes, I know it's messy, but you guys got the ideas. Yeah, that's how you define a character in space. I mean, that is like if you see something like this, you immediately know, wow, this character actually standing in this space with like a horizon like this, instead of just a character floating in nowhere. And this is important because it all obeys everything that we just talked about in the geometry sections here. So you can now just like do random stuffs with the character without actually knowing the geometry. So yeah, that is the importance of the geometry that we just like stated. All right, it's been 2 hours. I don't know like what we are going to do for the next hour, or should we just stop here? Because I originally think that, well, today we are just going through some basics, like the basic practice of like anatomy that we show you in the first hour, and the second hour we'll spend some time like talking about geometries and perspectives, and we have done both of it, and it's like a little bit quicker than I anticipated. There's we did not really learn too many new stuffs, I guess, during these 2 hours. It's just me like doing some reviews, and probably we'll begin like to start learning new stuff if we are going to make a next video. So Let me think about it for a while. Yeah, practicing geometry. We just talked about like practicing sketches, like how do you practice this character sketches. We talked about this, like there's like 3 ways basically you can use to start your sketch. So you can use the scribble line, you can use the silhouette, you can use the outline, well, whichever you want, but I would suggest you start with the scribble. If you are into the advanced class, then you probably want to do this, and if you are confident with your understanding enough to not concerning about this like detailed contours, then yeah, using this shading silhouette is definitely going to help. This is the first part we talked about. The second part, we first go through some of the basic structure of the human anatomy and combine that a little bit, just a little bit, with geometry that we have just talked about. So I think the last part will be to practice geometry, like to do still life. Yeah, guys, we need to practice still life during this winter. Yeah, there's no escape. There's no escape. There's no escape. All right, now finding references of still lifes online. That's the next thing that we're going to do. I will see like if there's any good reference images, like a still life reference. Can we find anything like that online? Still life photography. Wow, they do have still life photography. Yeah, I can see still life photography, and none of this are good for practicing. Reference. Basic. Yeah. Basic still life references. That is what we are looking for. We are going to do cubes, going to do cylinders. We're going to do this whatever shape, geometry shape is called. I have no English word to describe this. Sorry, my English is bad. We definitely going to do some series, probably cylindrical. Corn. Yeah, corn. Shit, I forgot that word. What? Corn. Yeah, C-O-N-E. It should be. Oh man. Okay. So these stuffs definitely going to do some of this. Using value create illusions. No. Temporary shape against black background. So like check out references. You know, just search on Google still life reference basic and just get something like this one. Yeah, find some geometries like this, just like simple cylinder, simple square, simple sphere, and in the like a really well lit space, and that is everything that we need to practice in this winter. Yep, that is everything we need to practice. We're not going to practice like drawing pears or drawing like apples. Those are not our concern. We are just going to have a good understanding of how the lighting and the shading and the geometry could be represented in the space. Yeah, so for example, oh shit, what is this? Holiday sale? No, I don't want that. This is actually a drawing. Yeah, this is a drawing. Ah, a bad job, man. Look at that, wrong geometry, right here. How can these two lines not merging together? We just learned that these two lines should have a vanishing point. Damn. Wrong surface. Guys, remember, don't do that. That is wrong. Okay, let me grab a good example. Still a basic cube. Cube. Yeah. Do we have like just simple cube? This is simple cube. Yeah. Do simple cube. This one. Is a real photo. This one probably is a 3D render of some sort, I think. The edge is too sharp. And I mean, usually you don't want an edge that sharp because this looks super fake, because there's still geometries, there's still surfaces along the edge. It's not a line. So if you are using a 3D image to practice still life, you better find a good 3D image. Yeah, you definitely can use 3D images to practice still life, but find a good one. Like for example, this edge is definitely, it's not good. It's not good. It's not going to represent everything that we need to learn. This one. This one is rounded. Why is it rounded? Is it so hard to find a good cube these days online? Oh man, disappointed. At least this one should be a good cube. Yeah, but it's a painting. You can use painting as well, but the thing about painting is that it could have potential problems like this. It could be wrong, meaning it could be misleading. So when you are using painting for reference, be careful as well. Don't think that every artist has the good eyes for like perspective. That is definitely not true. So if you can find a photo something like this, then definitely use that. Yeah. Oh my god, it's so hard to find a cube. I'm mad. Yeah, let's use this cube. Okay. Oh man, is this good? Is it a good reference? This is probably not the best reference that we have, because the surface underneath the cube is too black. You cannot really see the shadings on the surface, like the shadows that the cube actually cast on the surface. That is also important. Oh man. This is not what I want. That is actually not what I want. So hard to find a simple cube. This could be a good cube. The Y just right. Huh. Let me start another search using different keyword. Let's see if we can find a good reference. Few cube. Or I think there should be those databases. Still live reference for artist, photos for artist. Yep, there should be something like that. Let's see if I can find anything like that. Feel like Pinterest. Basic. Primitive shapes. Primitive shapes. Shapes. Actually, yeah. Search primitive shapes. This should be the one that you got, that you should use. The primitive shapes. New primitive shape led by singularized source. Okay. So I actually has to buy it. Standard using license. Okay. This is for sale, yeah. This is free, okay. 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 Yeah, there's definitely resources online that you can use. Yeah. So primitive shapes, find that. Grab like in whatever way that you want. Images like primitive shapes, artist, like for example, like this cube. Yeah, this cube is. This one is good for practicing. This one is good for practicing. Yeah. It is. I don't know if this is 3D models or actually like photo images, but you can see the edge is defined. It has these edges. It is not rounded. It is defined. Yeah. And it's well lit, and it's casting shadows on the surface and even have reflections. And this is something that you probably want to practice geometry. And if you can buy a set of this like primitives yourself, that's even better, I guess. But the problem with that is that you have to lit the room in a certain way, so it actually looks good. But if you can actually have some geometry like this by yourself, then I think it would be cool. Okay, let's do this again. Just grab this, pin it to our screen. And I think the last part, I'm going to do a quick practice of the geometry, like this primitive shapes, and then we call it a day. And I probably will post updates on Facebook about this video, about like uploading it, or about like sharing some of the files I created, and probably going to create some sort of like a Google Drive folder. I'm not sure. No, I'll probably talk about it later. Yeah, I'll talk about it later. All right, in terms of practicing primitive shapes, so again, you can see that the horizontal line or the horizon here pretty outward. So if we can actually, oh, if we define like maybe is here, and I think the camera that's used to shoot this simple shape, the I think is about the focus here. The focus is probably really long. I think, yeah. But anyway, it's definitely horizontal line is going to above the kissed canvas. It's going to be above, like probably somewhere right here. That is where the horizon is. But it doesn't really matter. So what we want to understand is that this two lines here doesn't is not something. Let me use that example. Sorry, man, but your example is a perfect illustration of what is wrong. So, sorry, man. Yeah. So it needs to converge. These two lines needs to converge. Unless this cube is not a cube, this two line has to converge to, like, if you're going to converge it to the horizon, it has to converge at the horizon. It cannot do something like this. This is not good. Yeah. So this two has to converge, like if you can see something like this kind of converge to something over here, then it's good. If you do something like this, then the other side should be, yeah, the other side is like this, more or less. Again, this two needs to converge a little better. Cannot really just like do nothing. And this one is straight. Yeah, this is straight. It's fine. And again, we're doing practices, so don't be too strict about like getting the perfect shape. It's nothing really too serious here. Just getting down the shape in shape as in a quick and dirty way, getting down the shape. But still pay a little bit more closer attention to the proportion of the surfaces. Get that right. And then we have the Q here. And we begin the shading. You can do it like this, like the traditional, how a traditional artist do it, like a shading using the pen like this. But this is like kind of slow and not very helpful, because I'm doing like digital painting. So if you are using pen and pencil, you will have to shade it by hand, just slowly, But if you are using digital paintings, then definitely you can use like digital tools to do it quicker, because it's all about like picking the right value and like using the right tone, that kind of stuff. And don't worry too much about color right now. I know like most of these images still has some colors. I can see like some bluish color in it, but that is not our concern for the time being. So I'll just like use the paint basket to fill in the colors. Let's fill in the color of the top first. Just use the grayscale matter. Probably this color here. The side is a little bit darker. Oh shit, it's not well connected. Then we need to fix that. Yep, now it should be good. Yep. Okay. And we have like something that's really dark on that side, because it's like a shady surface here. And we need the background as well, because we don't want it to float. And instead of using a paint basket, I'm going to use some gradient tool to represent background. I know the background starts pretty dark on top and kind of light on the bottom, so it'd be something like this. Hit enter. And you can already see that this top surface is a little bit too bright, so we need to adjust that. So need to pick a different color. What I just did was that I am kind of used to use some of the color adjustment tool to adjust colors. So it is like simple and easy, but in terms of practices, I don't think that is good. For good practice, you should eyeball it, like draw what you see instead of like just using like adjustment tool. You can use a paint basket. That is still like sort of like drawing what you see, and it saves you a lot of like tenuous like unwanted thing. But for other part, don't use color adjustment tool to do that. So I think we need color that is like a little bit darker. Oh no, as we have to adjust which one we want. Yep, this is better. Yeah, this is better. Yeah, because we can see the light source comes from top, hit the surface, and also a lot of light from the side as well. So the light source probably coming this way, and then this part is just dark. Let's probably give it like make it darker. I'll probably make it darker, a little bit darker. Yep. I noticed that the edge is actually bright because there's still surface on the edge. This is what I was talking about, like there's surface on the edge. So don't find like 3D images that has hard edges. That's not what real objects look. That is not what a real object look. And that edge is pretty bright. Can use this one. This is one. And also in that case, we can get rid of those like outlines that you don't want. And I don't know if we can see it clearly, but you can see that there's still a little bit bright here as well. So because that is also another edge, so we need to draw that out. And also here. Okay, that is the basic shape that we have. But this is not still in space. It's not sitting in any of the areas. It's not sitting at any of the surfaces. Because first of all, we don't have a shadow. Like if it is an object, it has to cast shadows on like surfaces. If it's sitting on a surface, then there's definitely going to be shadows. So we have to add in the shadows. All right. Now notice the shadows is really dark. It's really dark, but it's not completely black. And we need to add in our shadows. Just in. Yeah. And see that because the shadow is formed with the light source, so it has to form geometry perspective relationships to where the edge, where is this representing edges. So here in this case, I'm looking at this two, like this edge of the shadow, also this edge on the cube. These two should be parallel, and then it should merge into the vanishing point as well. So these two needs to parallel each other, and also this two needs to parallel each other. And this one, this shadow is cast by this edge. And get rid of the unwanted area. And then if you want like a softer edge, you can use the smooth to smooth out the shadow, but it is not that important. It's like if you want to get the details, because I mean one good thing about like this practice is that notice that because this line on the shadow is caused by like this vertical line on the cube. So when this vertical line is casting the shadows, the bottom part is the closest to where the shadow is. So it's harder. The edge of the shadow is harder at this point, and then gradually becomes softer. That is like some of the light scattering that is doing. I don't know the technical word for that. It probably is not light scattering, I guess, but you get my point. Yep. So this part you has to if you want to have a better understanding about like the shadow, how that works, then yeah, you can like pay attention to this as well. And then notice that this is also a shadow here. Because there's space in the bottom. Okay, this is where the shadow is. And now we can see that, yeah, this cube is kind of like sitting in the space. It's kind of sitting here. It's decent, but somehow it still find that well, something's not right, right? Because first of all, the shadow we are talking about here is just purely caused by the main light source, but we are not talking about like shadows and lightings that caused by the environment. For example, if you observe in the picture that well, this area is well lit, right? So it has a pretty strong reflections overall. So there will be reflected light from this like just plain surface and cast light onto the surface of the cube. So that is why you are seeing this part, like this part is dark. And why is that? Because it's not picking up the light from the environment. It's blocked by the shadow. Is it like actually picking well, I don't know whether you should say that it's picking up the shadow, but it's kind of like picking up the shadows here. So Yeah, you can see that there's a like dark thing, dark line here. This is what I think it's called ambient occlusion. I don't know whether that is right or not, but I kind of remember it's called ambient occlusion because it's so close to the surface, so it's not receiving that much of the light, and especially when it's on the in the shadow, like in the shaded area, this is definitely not going to be picking up much of the light. And gradually on top, as it progresses, you can see that the light is actually getting receiving light from the environment, like this, like like the surface sitting at is like producing light on the surface. And also re-noticing that why this part is lit on the on the like the plane on the surface that the cube is sitting is because it's picking up light, the reflective light from this surface. This surface is reflecting the main light from the main light source, and casting a strong light onto the surface here. And also another part that makes this realistic. Okay, let's work on those two and see how good we can get. So for this practice, I will use like a watercolor or smooth paint brush, and just use the shadowed color that we just picked, and gradually adding in the shadows here. And see that this shadow is not dark enough. We may need darker shadows for this part. Like this is really dark. This one is really dark. So use the normal paintbrush to acting that shadow. Use a small brush to smooth out the harsh shadows in here. Yeah. And we are adding some of the light in this area on the surface. And this is pretty bright. I would say around here, probably around here. Is it too bright? No, it's fine. Yeah. Okay. So if we want to add a little bit more, we can maybe think about, for example, the distance from light source. Of course, like we can see a light source is over here. So further away from light source, it should be a little bit dimmer. So if you want to really add in details, I don't know if you want to do that or not, but if you want, you can definitely do that. You can always, like, for example, gently use some kind of, no, this is not working great. Just like using the brush to paint it in, I guess is the best way. Add a little bit like darker color here and smooth it into the surface. And finally getting rid of like the outlines. Well, yep, that is our cube, guys. That is the cube that we have. That is how you practice still lifes, especially for if you want to understand better about like the shadings and perspectives. This like basic primitives is the best friend of yours. So do some of this practice every day, like maybe 1 or 2 primitives, or like if you want to do like 4 or 5, that's totally fine. It's going to help you a lot when you are going to draw later, especially when you're dealing with not only characters but also machineries like hard surfaces. For example, if you want your character to hold on, then weapon, right? So it cannot be like a flat, like just a piece of paper in your hand, right? It has to have geometries, and you have to decide what kind of textures you want to have on that weapon, and what material is that weapon made of, right? Is it like made of fiberglass, or is it made of like steel, or like rusted like iron, or like made of copper? Or you have to think about those, and then you will find that, well, it all comes down to the idea about this like lighting and shadings, yeah, and the geometries, like basic, really basic geometries and like primitives. This is going to help you a lot. Yeah. Okay. So we have covered a lot today. It's like 2.5 hours already. So we talked about first of all, let me close this. We talk about like practicing like just quick body sketch again. You can decide like which way you want to use for the practice. And then we talked about some basic body anatomy, really basic ones. It's just like a review probably for most of the guys, because there's like tons of references online, and you can find those references. Probably those references are better than I have done this today. So find yourself a good reference, an anatomy reference, like basic anatomy reference, and study those. And we talked about like geometry, basic geometry. Yep. And how that fits into perspectives, and how to use like some of the math to determine the perspectives, and how the perspective can relate to what we are going to draw later this winter. That is the body, like the human anatomy. Yeah, how to represent the good human body in a 3D space. And finally, we talked about creating, practicing primitives, geometry primitives, basic cubes for today. We later we are going to do cylinders and spheres and cones, and also more complex combinations of geometries. And that will be a lot of practice, I know, but we'll have to do those. So what I'm going to expect everyone to do, including myself, over this winter, is to practice about like let me say around 10, right? Like 10 body sketches every day, like 10 of this like really loose sketches. It doesn't has to be, looking super good and like a production quality. That is not what we're looking for. We're just like looking at if you can grasp the basics of the body dynamics, like the language of the body, like to define those curves. Can you do that? If you can actually do that in a really decent way, it will help you a lot when you are going to create your own characters later on. And especially if you're thinking about
you are doing with you're thinking, imagining a character walking, right? How does that actually look? How does a person actually walk? It's kind of not that simple. It's kind of complex. It's actually complex. Yeah. So if you don't have a database in your head to create some like kind of like actions, then you're going to have some problems once you're trying to create those characters. So it's better to keep really good practice, really good sketches. Yeah. Oh my god, it's late. I'm tired. Sorry. Uh, yeah, to keep good practice, like to keep good sketches. Maybe 10 of the sketches every day. I would think is going to be good, to be beneficial. And the second practice is the geometry. You can like as I just did, like separate geometry on different layers. They're definitely good. That's definitely okay, because we are using digital. I'm using digital tools. So if you are using like traditional paintings, it's definitely going to need more well work done, I guess. But in a digital painting tool like this, you can separate the geometry into different layers, like the background layer, the shadow layer, and also the object layer. This is how I did it. I think it's totally fine if you do that. And practice maybe 4 to 5 of this kind of like drawings every day as well. It's going to help us understand the space better. We can have a better eye later on to see what is going to be the, especially when the body part is not directly facing you, if it's turned into a different angle, how that actually manifests itself in the 3D space. That is important, and practicing this will help us understand the question that we ran into later. Yep. All right. I think that will be everything I have for you guys and for myself today. Just laying out some example for the practice we are going to do, and we will start the actual learning next week. I don't know, because this week, next week, yeah, next week. I'm not sure like when I would like to do that. Because I mean, I don't know if every one of you are free, are done with your schoolworks, and you don't have any work to do over the weekdays, and so I probably will stream on weekend. But I'm a little bit concerned with the frequency of that, because I mean we just like stream or keep my diary just once a week. That sounds a little bit too low frequency. I will figure it out later. Yeah, but the purpose is that every time we start streaming, it will be some sort of like learning experience. We will start practicing at first, like doing the practice that we did like today. First the body sketch, then the geometry, basic like primitive shapes. Then we move on to watching some tutorials online, totally like dealing with like anatomies, and dealing with some of the stuff that I kind of interested in. For example, clothing, right? If you want to use like you need to understand different textures or different materials, then definitely that is also another topic. Um, Also, I think we can talk about a little bit about like coloring and like harmony, composition, that kind of stuff towards the end of this winter. And the plan is that before the school start next year, we will have some good amount of practice done and accumulated to an extent that, well, we can feel comfortable with drawing out, at least using references, a good character. Yeah, that is the point. That is the goal of this winter. And all right, since this video is recorded, this will be uploaded later to YouTube, and I guess that is the end of the video, and I will see you guys next time, and have a nice winter break if you have any. Sorry, I'm having a nice winter break. So